I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, April the 2nd, sharply lower on cattle markets, all of them. Cows and bulls, fat cattle, calves, yearlings, anything. Box beef cutout values, everything's sharply lower. And I tell you what, this coronavirus pandemic is going to break a lot more people than it kills. And I'm not trying to lighten the killing at all, but I tell you what, it is breaking people. And these guys are going to have to get some kind of help, and they are in the steps. They've got the money put up there, and they're kind of in negotiations on how exactly we are going to get some help for your cattle producers. Most of your cattle guys are not excited about taking a bailout. They're not excited about putting their hand out for the government to help them, but they need to take some lessons from their row crop brothers, because they're pretty good at it. And I'm sure they can kind of counsel them and tell them it'll be all right, and you'll learn to like it. But tell you what, this deal is breaking people. You know, it's not only your cattle people. I mean, people that own businesses and things. We can't just shut this country down for this long. And my gosh, I tell you what, I hope we remember this in the future, this present that China has given us, because I tell you what, it is sure taking us aback, and we still really can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And talking to a lot of people, especially in the cattle business, I mean, this thing really hit home on Wednesday, and guys are more scared than they've been through this whole pandemic. But it was really bad on Wednesday, and we're going to talk all about it. But the main reason that your board opened down so hard early is because we're starting to see, and my old buddy Corby Coast up there in North Dakota, he called it there first. I mean, I'm sure there's some other people that said it, but I actually blamed him because I didn't want to be the bearer of bad news. But not being able to keep these plants open is we knew that was going to be a major deal. And we had some talk from USDA, and they were encouraging your plants to try to stay open as well as they could. And they have, for the most part, basically because they've been making so much damn money off your consumers and off your cattle producers. But now your box beef cutout values are falling now because they can't move the product at the elevated prices that they put up there. And now this pandemic has come in there on their workers and having a tough time. We talked about the JBS plant up there in Souderton, Pennsylvania, having to shut down their slaughter process for the next 2 weeks. They are still doing some fabricating, but they have shut down the slaughter floors till after Easter, I should say. Well, we got news right away on Wednesday that the JBS plant in Greeley, Colorado, had about 800 workers call in sick. We have had confirmed cases of coronavirus there in the workforce at JBS Greeley, and I don't know if it's because people were scared to come in, if people really were sick. You know, some people have to take care of their children because they're not going to school. There's a lot of reasons. The initial report said that the union was going to look in and see why so many people were calling in sick. By that afternoon, by Wednesday afternoon, we were hearing that the union was wanting to negotiate to get those people back to work. So they're trying to take advantage of it too. And I tell you what, people are just taking advantage of this whole pandemic deal, and it's kind of a dirty trick, a dirty pool kind of a way to get things done. But you know, we've heard that Tyson, and Tyson might be the best of the four rattlesnakes. You know, Tyson did throw the $5 bones. Of course, some of your other mostly regional markets also did too. There a week or so ago, but also Tyson's come out and said that they've set aside $60 million to give bonuses to their frontline workers there, and so that's helping them keep their people wanting to come to work. But this deal is really, really getting serious, and they've had to slow the chain speeds down at JBS Greeley. That's going to cut down on our slaughter. We can't stand that really right now in the cattle business, and it's really getting tough. But then that's on your live cattle and on your live cattle futures. On your feeder cattle futures, guys were down on them and wanted to use that as an opportunity, because it's so evident that the price levels, even though they were depressed on your feeder cattle futures, if you looked at those prices for the traded months, none of those cattle, if bought, would, with the corresponding month of live cattle that those cattle finish in, none of those cattle would work. None of those cattle would hedge out. So your big feeder cattle buying operations, your big corporate feeders were looking at that and they're saying, hey, this doesn't work. We can't pay these kind of price levels for feeder cattle, and we can't lock them in. Some of your smaller feeding outfits, they can't get financing if they can't lock them in, and they can't get it done either. So we knew that it was going to go down hard. The heck of it is, they pushed the feeder cattle futures down the limit, but our live cattle futures went down the limit also, and they were at expanded limits, so they didn't gain anything. We're still in the same mess that we were in earlier in the week. And so you assume that it's just going to continue here the latter part of this week. But I mean, there just doesn't seem bottom to it. You know, there's still as much money out there as there was a month ago. It's just in different piles. And I would say that the beef packers pile has a whole lot more in it than your cattle producers. I mean, that's obvious. But you know, you start thinking about that. All the money that's gone out of the Dow, all the money that's gone out of your commodities, all the money that's gone out of your business people trading, and down to your barbershops, your hairdressers, your restaurants, everything. Everybody's broke, but there's still just as much money out there as there was. Let's look at your futures market for Wednesday. April live cattle futures down the $4.50 limit at $97.32. That's our spot fat cattle futures price right there, and then we're getting into April. June down the $4.50 limit, $87.57. Guys, we're looking at 80 something cent fats here before too long. And gosh, you know, if you just said that a month ago, you know, we were thinking as recent as 6 weeks ago that we might be able to keep this fat cattle market over $1, even going into the big heavy supplies of market ready cattle that we're going to be getting into down the line as the temperatures start to warm up in the summertime. But my gosh, you know, we'll look at June, 87.57. All your out front live cattle futures were locked down the $4.50 limit until you got to August of 2021. It was only down 85 cents. April feeder cattle, of course, down the $4.50 limit, $117.42. May down the $4.50 limit, $118.40. And you're thinking, my gosh, $117, $118 for based on an 800-pound feeder steer. They were selling them that way, guys. That's how sharply lower it was. It may be a $4.50 limit on the futures, but in your cash market, there's no limit to how cheap they can go, and they went a lot further than that. But still hardly any opportunity to buy any cattle that will hedge, and they've got to get even cheaper yet. But you go out front on your feeder cattle futures, all your traded months locked down the $4.50 limit. Fat cattle did trade on Wednesday, and it was actually a little bit better than what I had feared. Guys are holding pretty good. Your packers are feeling a little bit more generous because the heat is on them. I tell you what, they've got the lighter on their boots, on the soles of their boots that they always have up on their desk, and they're paying a little bit of a hot foot there, and they're starting to feel the heat. There's some pretty influential congressmen, senators out there that are starting to say, you know, this is enough is enough. These guys in these big ag states, these senators, and the like are starting to notice that, and the grumbling is getting louder and louder, and the natives are getting restless. And then by natives, I mean your cattle people out in the rural parts. They're learning how to use their computer, their social media, things like that to spread the word. And I tell you what, the awareness of how bad these cattle people have been getting screwed is as high as it's ever been. I was on a conference call on Wednesday. We're going to push this 30% volume negotiated cash trade, and we're going to push it. If you guys want to get behind it, we invite you to do that. Once we get some stuff on paper, you guys that are involved in some producer organizations and some cattlemen's organizations, we're trying to get as many of these groups to throw in with us, so we can put your name on there as a supporter. You know, right now we've got U.S. Cattlemen's Association. We've got several of your big state cattlemen's associations going to be in there. Some other trade organizations going to put their name on there. We're looking to put as many groups down as supporting that measure as we can, and it's going to be to force 30% negotiated cash trade, and within a 14-day delivery. And it will help everything, guys. It will help everything, down to your baby calves. I'm telling you, it will absolutely help everything. It'll be a trickle-down deal that will absolutely help. It's not something that is a pie-in-the-sky idea. We've got a way to enforce that. There'll be more details coming out as we move forward, but we're definitely going to push that. And I'm just a piece of the puzzle in there, but I'm going to use this forum to try to push that, and I think it could be the savior of the industry. But there'll be more information coming forward, and keep watching the feeder flash here, because I'll keep you guys up to date. But fat cattle traded in the Southern Plains mostly on Wednesday from mostly 112 to 113, so that's mostly $8 lower. And you think that's rough? Yeah, it is sharply lower, $8 lower. Hell, that's less than 2 days trade on the board, guys, because you know we're looking at limit moves all the time. But Iowa had just a few cattle, 400 head, confirmed on Wednesday at $1.80. That'd be about $10 lower on a dress basis. Nebraska about 1,400 head, 175 to 180, still about $10 lower, and a few live sales in Nebraska at 111 and a quarter, but not too many. Your Kansas and Texas sold cattle mostly at 112 and a few at 113. We didn't get that many of the numbers. There's going to be a lot more cattle at the 112 that traded on Wednesday that'll show up as we go on to Thursday. So your market is 112 on fat cattle now, guys. If we don't lose any more, if they don't trade more at a lower level later on in the week. But I would say, especially in the Southern Plains, most of you guys that wanted to get sold probably did, and we'll have to see what kind of volume we got, because a lot of it happened later in the day. But box beef cutout values were sharply lower. Your end users were just tired of paying those inflated levels that the packers priced on the box beef cuts, and they're backing off of that because they've got enough product in there now. The panic buying, I wouldn't say it's over, but it's slacked off a little bit. You know, people only have so much room in their refrigerators, their cabinets, and their freezers. And so they're starting to back off that a little bit. But choice cuts on Wednesday afternoon, $235.17, down $7.98. Selects $225.13, down $3.83. You got a choice select spread of $10.04, and light movement again. Only 135 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. You look at some of your products on there, and they were sharply lower. You know, your fresh 50 trimmings, your fat trimmings there are the lowest they've ever been quoted at. And I tell you what, you guys talk about how we hate to bring any product in, and especially when we're going through stuff like this from other countries, but that's how they add value to stuff like your fresh 50s, is bringing in other grinding product to mix that fresh 50s with to give them some flavor. And I tell you what, we're really down on that. In fact, even heard some stories that they might have been taking their fresh 50 trimmings and just throw them in with the rendering. They were that cheap and couldn't add any more value to them and needed the space. But let's look at your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Wednesday at 125.93, down $2.81. Just big losses there, and then that's up to date through your Wednesday sales. So you'll soon see that whenever your CME cash feeder cattle index catches up. But you look at your big sales: OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, 6,400 head, including about 1,500 head of calves on Tuesday, but just a wreck. Feeder steers $10 to $15 lower. Feeder heifers $8 to $12 lower, and you think, my God, what a trend there. Well, let's look at the trends the last few weeks out of El Reno, our biggest market there. Last week, your trends at El Reno on a lighter run, less than 3,000 head, feeders were $10 to $20 higher. 2 weeks ago, at about 1,900 head, $4 to $12 lower. 3 weeks ago, $4 to $12 lower on a bigger run of 6,800 head. But you know, how are guys supposed to work with that kind of a deal? How's your commission agents, your sale barn guys, supposed to help people? They can't tell them within $10 or $20, $100 of what the cattle might bring. How would you like to have been some guys, you know, coming in, bringing cattle in and taking that much less for them than what you thought they might bring? But I'll tell you what the market is there, and I picked this one quote out. It's neither the highest or the lowest, but it's towards the upper end. But this is the market on cattle, on feeder cattle, and soon our index level will get there, because that is the market. 111 head in El Reno weighed 803 pounds at 122. That's pretty good for Wednesday, and that's where we're headed, guys. And if you look at your recent sales, that's where more of them bringing that and below than they are above. But Dodge City, Kansas, winter livestock had a pretty good run there. 4,200 head there, sharply lower on everything that had 4 legs, a tail, and mood. Feeder steers $11 to $14 lower. Feeder heifers $10 to $14 lower, with spots as much as $20 lower on big yearling feeder heifers. Your cows and bulls, you know, we talked about how they dropped the bids so much on Friday of them, and they really had a good cow and bull sale at Dodge City a week ago. It was $8 to $10 higher. This week, 16 to 20 bucks lower on slaughter cows. That's unbelievable. I've never seen a trend like that on slaughter cows. You know, 3 to 5 bucks one way or the other is a ton on cows. 16 to $20 lower, but they, you know, it's just simple arithmetic, guys, and that is their top cow was 66 bucks. You know, a week ago you were working up there close to 80. It's, you know, how can guys do that? You know, and then you've got producers out there, and they miss that just by either not being able to get their cattle out or just misjudging it by 1 week. Unbelievable. Let's talk about Bassett, Nebraska. You know, that's a premium type sale out there in the sand hills of Nebraska. They always have the top quotes. They've got the best cattle in the world around there. You know, it hit that too. You know, I was talking to Shane Caxor there on Wednesday night, and he said that it's probably the roughest day that he spent in the 5 years that he's been managing and owning that sale barn there. And, you know, and still the best quotes that we saw anywhere in the country, but sharply lower. 4,200 head there at Bassett. Let's look at some of the best tested weights of feeder cattle there on the steers. 748 head of the 6-weight steer calves weighed 652 on the average, 153.03, and you think, my gosh, that's fantastic. Well, it was sure $10 to $20 lower than the last sale they had, which they hadn't had one for a couple of weeks. 438 head of the 7-weight steers averaged 724 at 138.74, and 257 head of the 8-weight steers in Bassett, Nebraska bring 126.38 on the average. The big slug of 6-weight heifer calves guys have sure pulled back keeping their heifers, even though they're not worth very much. I mean, nobody can guess how long this deal is going to go. 810 head of the 6-weight heifers averaged 640 pounds at 138. And then the best quote that I saw out of Bassett, mainly because it was Hereford cattle, good Hereford cattle, but they're hard to sell some places, but you got a reputation behind them, and there's a difference in them. I tell you, well, those really, really good Herefords there. 73 head, 650 pound Hereford steer calves at 154. A couple of other top quotes. Bloomfield, Iowa, the Schooley family there, Bloomfield Livestock Market, 65 head of 866 pound steers bring 123.85, and that would be a really top quote there. But the highest quote that I saw anywhere on Wednesday come out of Sterling, Colorado at the Sterling Livestock Commission, 50 head, 561 pound steer calves, be good stockers there at $186. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.